Hello, new school comic book reviews. Okay, we're just going to jump right into it. The first comic I have here is Avengers #1. This is no adjective, Avengers #1, written by Jonathan Hickman and the art is by Jerome Opina. Um, it's decent enough as far as being an introductory issue, as far as being a setup issue. Basically, what goes on here is there is some sort of threat on Mars, and the Avengers go to investigate, and they basically get their asses handed to them by the bad guys. Captain America gets sent back to Earth, and it ends with him calling out reserve members. Decent enough as far as like establishing the premise and what the plot's going to be. Plus, there's lots of little hints of other ideas that'll probably be more developed as the story goes along. And it works. It's quick. It's well paced. It's easy enough to understand the story, such as it is. Like I said, we don't get a whole lot of story, being as it's basically the setup issue. One problem I have with it is I think let's see here. How do I want to say this? It doesn't do a good enough job, in my opinion, of explaining who some of the characters are. And the thing about this is, part of the alleged purpose of the Marvel Now initiative is to try to get new readers into comics, And the thing is, somebody who doesn't already know who the characters are might be confused a little bit. You know what I mean? I think they could have added a little bit more of dialogue, or maybe just a caption or two that says, whatever, Tony Stark, Iron Man, Steve Rogers, Captain America, or what have you. You know what I mean? Something like that. I know who all the characters are, so I'm not confused. But somebody who has never picked up a comic book, maybe saw the movie once, might get lost a little bit. Here's another good example. Early on, there's Tony Stark is talking to Steve Rogers, and there's a random panel of the new Illuminati just kind of dropped in on the page. You know what I mean? And I know who the new Illuminati is. I know that these are going to be the guys who are going to be in the new Avengers comic that's also being written by Jonathan Hickman. And so, I can assume that, okay, yeah, this is all going to tie in later on. But like I said, somebody who doesn't know comics, might not get that. They might look at that and be like, oh, what's this mean? Who are these people? Why are they just, standing there, and no reference is made, to them otherwise, you know what I mean? That type of thing. There's lots of there's not lots, but there's stuff like that in there. There's remember when we found you, Captain America, in the ice and stuff like that. And if you know your Marvel Comics characters, you know what that's a reference to. But if you don't, you might be lost, that type of thing. But otherwise, yeah, it's a pretty decent issue. You get some cool new supervillains, or I'm assuming they're new. I'm not familiar with them. You kind of see what their agenda is. You get some action, and yeah, it feels like a decent enough first issue. So I'll probably check out the next couple, and we'll go from there. Next, Earth 2 #7. I am enjoying this comic a lot. When I first heard it was announced, I was like, it's going to be another Elseworlds type thing. But no, I have a lot of fun with this comic book. This comic book feels like a very solid, old-fashioned superhero comic, and it's really, it's exactly the type of thing that I want out of like the New 52. You got these new interpretations of like these older characters. They feel fresh. It's very engaging. You want to see what's next going to happen. What's in this issue is basically Alan Scott has a conversation with Hawkgirl. Hawkgirl is trying to convince him to join the team or what have you. We get some developments with Terry Sloan and Commander Khan, and how it's working with the world government, or the world army, that's what it is. It's not the world government. And about how they've been kind of assembled to fight against these sort of extraordinary threats, but now all these, superhumans are starting to appear. And you've seen that on one hand, Commander Khan seems to be a guy who's looking out for the best interests of everyone. But Terry Sloan might have his own agenda going on. He almost feels to me almost like a Lex Luthor-ish type character. But but yeah, we have that. We have Wesley Dodd and his Sandmen facing off against Mr. Terrific, and there's a hint there that they may be introducing a new Red Tornado. So yeah, this is I have a lot of fun with this comic. There's some decent art with let's see here. It's not Nicola Scott. It is what the hell? I'm just having some computer issues here. There we go. All right. Yeah, the art here is by, and I apologize because I know I'm going to mispronounce his name, Yudere Sinar, and of course the writing is by James Robinson. But yeah, I find this is a very, very solid superhero comic. This is totally what I want out of like a super team comic. I only wish Justice League was this good, you know what I mean? Actually, I wish James Robinson did a run with Mark Bagley a couple years ago. I wish that Justice League was as good as this. But yeah, this is fun. I like it a lot. Let's see here. Next, I have Hawkeye number 5. This is the second part of a 2-part story. It's written by Matt Fraction, the artist by Javier Pulido. The premise of this story is basically there is a VHS tape out there of Hawkeye killing a third world dictator, and basically Hawkeye has to get the tape back because if not, it's going to, be a big national security risk and damage the Avengers' reputation and so on and so forth. There is a twist that kind of explains things, and I won't give that away. But yeah, this is a very fun, once again, very solid superhero comic. It's light, it's breezy, it feels kind of like a lighthearted action movie, and yeah, it's really good. It's one of the better comics being put out these days. I like the relationship between Hawkeye and Kate Bishop, who is the girl Hawkeye, who's kind of sort of his partner, sort of sidekick, and I like the fact that they have a kind of nice rapport going, and Kate is being presented as someone who's capable on her own right. I like the layouts here. I like the action choreography. It's fun. It's kind of edge of your seat stuff. And yeah, I know I keep saying fun over and over and over, but that's what this comic book is. It's just a good time. Next, I have Stump Town number 4 from Oni Press, written by Greg Rucka and the artist by Matthew Southworth. Basically, it's a straightforward sort of detective story. What happens is the main character is assigned to find the missing guitar belonging to this local rock star, and then it turns out that maybe somebody was using it to deal drugs or something like that. There's this Nazi skinhead gang involved. The cops are involved, and basically it's about how the private eye, on one hand, has to track down the bad guys, at the same time staying ahead, trying to stay one step ahead of the cops. Yeah, once again, fun comic. This issue has a pretty interesting chase scene, and it's kind of interesting that you kind of have to turn the comic book sideways to read it once the chase starts. Just interesting layout, and it's actually pretty effective as a car chase in a comic book. One thing about the art though is, while I think it's decent, it's very serviceable. I wish it was a little bit, I don't know, slicker, a little bit tighter. Matthew Southworth kind of has this kind of sketchy style to it, and while I think it works with the material, just on a personal level, yeah, I just wish it was a little bit slicker looking. Next, I have Silk Spectre number 4. Darwin Cook did the writing, and the art is by Amanda Connor. This series, I think, actually succeeds a lot better. This is just my personal opinion, but I think it succeeds a lot better than the other before Watchmen comics, or at least the ones that I've seen. I haven't read them all because, well, I just haven't. But yeah, in a lot of ways, the art style harkens back to the original novel as far as a lot of pages trying to go to the 3-tier, sometimes 9-panel grid. Not always, but a lot of times. There's visual cues that go back to the original comic. There's also the whole idea of using other visual imagery and things to tell parts of the stories that you don't get from the words, and evoke certain emotions and ideas and stuff like that. And yeah, I think it's great. I think this art is super fantastic. It's just really lovely, 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 beautiful to look at. And you do kind of get, um, how do I want to say this? I don't know if I want to say an explanation, but you do kind of see how Lori goes from being this kind of outcast, misfit adolescent girl to becoming the kind of bitter person that you saw in the original novel. And I think it works. I think it works a lot. The only apprehension I have with it is there are a couple of things in here with sort of the bad guy that's a little bit, maybe almost too comic booky. And normally I wouldn't mind that because I like stuff that's comic booky, but I'm not so sure that really would have fit into the original Watchmen universe. But other than that, I think it was really great. I had a lot of fun with this series. This was the last part, but yeah, really, it's a really good read. And then finally, I have all new X-Men #3, written by Brian Michael Bendis and art by Stuart Immonen. This is a comic book that's just worth buying for the art alone. Stuart Immonen's art is just super fantastic. It's lovely to look at. It's slick. It's dark, but at the same time, it's not overly rendered. It's just great storytelling, great emotions as far as showing what's on the characters' faces and things like that. And it's just awesome here. Basically, this story mostly focuses on Scott's team, and it looks like their powers have are going out of control a little bit. Like maybe their powers have been corrupted by the Phoenix Force. And I'm sure that's probably going to be dealt with a little bit more down the line. And that's basically all that happens here. Yeah, that's basically it. But yeah, it's a comic book is a little bit better than I expected it to be, because this is just my personal opinion. I know some people are going to disagree. I always feel that Brian Michael Bendis is really not the best guy on team comics. I think he's a lot better on solo comics. And I have read online where some people didn't like the way he wrote Emma Frost's dialogue. Like they felt that her speech pattern wasn't, accurate to how it's been in the past. But it didn't take me out of the story. I'll say that for myself. But yeah, comics better than I thought it was, and you know what? I'm still on board so far. So yeah, and like I said, even if you don't like Brian Michael Bendis, I still think it's worth buying just for the art. Stuart Immonen just knocks it out of the park. Okay, and I guess that's it. I gotta thank you very much for listening. Thank you, and you all have a great day.